It's a painful, solemn homecoming. Palestinians who fled the city of Khan Yunis return to its ruins after Israeli forces pull out. Some pick through the debris of their shattered lives, looking for whatever can still be salvaged. Around £15 billion worth of damage has been inflicted to Gaza's infrastructure, according to the World Bank. How to measure the suffering of its inhabitants?
No words can describe my pain. I have no words to express my feelings. Our memories, our dreams, our childhood, and our family are all gone. I couldn't find anything under the rubble.
The conflict is far from over, but 6 months after the war began, following Hamas's October the 7th attacks, Israel has withdrawn the vast bulk of its ground forces in Gaza. Khan Yunis in southern Gaza was the scene of Israel's last major ground offensive. Troop numbers had already been drawn down. Now only one brigade is left, guarding a corridor splitting the territory in two. Though the possibility of an Israeli assault on Rafah, where so many Gazans fled seeking safety, remains a possibility, despite international opposition to it.
Israel will maintain the freedom to act, as it does actually in the West Bank, to act for its own security, based on intelligence in raids and short-term raids that do not entail remaining on the ground for long periods of time. Now, there's, of course, the question of Rafah. And in my mind, the question of Rafah has to do more with sealing off the border between the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Desert, so Hamas cannot reinforce itself through there as it did before October 7th, much more than with the remaining 4 battalions of Hamas. Those battalions can be contained, they can be dismantled over time.
Last month, the Israeli army launched a huge raid on the Al-Shifa hospital complex in northern Gaza, despite previously having declared the area free from Hamas. The move was widely criticized abroad, but Israel is holding it up as a model of how it plans to act in the future. Inside Israel, frustration with the government's handling of the war is rising. At a huge rally in Jerusalem last night, in solidarity with the hostages held in Gaza, the relatives of some accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of not doing enough. They're placing their hopes on talks around a ceasefire deal in Egypt. But this evening, a Hamas official said the group had rejected the latest proposals put forward. In a video today, Netanyahu claimed securing the hostages' release was the primary objective of the war, and following criticism from right-wing allies, also said a date for an invasion of Rafah has been set in order to, in his words, secure victory over Hamas. Hamas has been severely weakened, but it's already been re-emerging in the north. Israel's reduced much of Gaza to rubble, but has no clear plan on what comes next. For ordinary families back in what's left of their homes in Khan Yunis, who've already lost so much, a bleak future of further violence and instability lies ahead.
Well, I'm joined now by Sam Rhodes, Director of Planning at UNRWA, the UN agency for Palestinians that provides the backbone of humanitarian support in Gaza, and he was in Gaza until 10 days ago. I mean, when you look at a place like Khan Yunis, what can any aid agency do there? I mean, it's rubble.
It's complete rubble, and the Israelis pulled out today after an operation going on for 5 or 6 weeks. We've continued to provide some services in part of Khan Yunis, the parts of Khan Yunis that have been accessible towards the coast, but this idea that life will go back there to normal, that we can operate as normal, is not realistic. But
what do people do when they move into these areas? I mean, do they live in tents, or, I mean, because they can't live
People, the Israelis pulled out overnight, and some people go back, as we would in these situations, to inspect what's left of your home. So a lot of people, we would expect to see movement from Rafah as people go back to have a look at what's left. But there's very little. If what's left of Khan Yunis is similar to what's left of northern Gaza and Gaza City, there'll be very little for people to go back to for months, if not years. What
is UNRWA doing now? Because, you know, the Israelis have been systematically attacking your organisation, undermining it, saying you're biased. You know, are you functioning as an organisation?
We are functioning as an organisation in many ways, not as we would normally function outside of a war, but we are distributing flour to tens of thousands of people every day. Since October, we've provided flour to 1.8 million people in Gaza, almost 1.9 million people. So we're providing medical consultations to over 20,000 people a day, refugees and non-refugees. In times of conflict, in times of crisis, UNRWA's mandate actually extends beyond serving and assisting Palestine refugees to support the population at large, because we are the entity with the footprint, with the capacity, with the understanding of conditions on the ground.
And what about getting aid around, well, in first and around?
The issue, the situation of getting aid into Gaza remains incredibly difficult.
Because the Israelis won't let you do it, basically.
The Israelis won't, it's not that they won't let us bring aid in, but the process for bringing aid in is convoluted, it's time-consuming, it's extremely difficult to bring aid in through the one crossing point that was designed for goods that is still opening. Once we've got aid into Gaza, there's the issues of distributing it around Gaza Strip. There are issues of availability of trucks, conditions of law and order on the ground, and our inability as UNRWA to distribute food to northern Gaza, which we've been calling for, which the international community has been calling for several months, and all the more so since the reports on famine came out a few weeks ago.
Well, I mean, what's happening with, you know, the crossing's supposed to be open now, isn't it? So why isn't...
Crossings are open. The crossing, Kerem Shalom crossing in southern Gaza is open. It's not open to the extent that is required to get in the 500 trucks a day that aid organisations, including UNRWA, say are required.
But they said Erez was open then, didn't they? So, I mean, is it functioning? I mean,
no, Erez is not functioning. We've seen the news plans to reopen Erez. Erez was also a passenger material, so a terminal. So the idea that Erez could substitute for the volumes of aid that needs to get in. And it's not just aid that needs to get in. You can't survive. You can survive, but you can't live and you can't recover on a food parcel that UNRWA provides. We need the commercial crossings to open as well, and the passage of commercial trucks to be allowed back into Gaza at the volume.
I mean, the thing is, Israel wants a future without UNRWA at all. I mean, it says it doesn't trust you. Is that possible?
I think right now, given the gravity, given the complexity, given the scale of the humanitarian situation in Gaza, you can't, this is not an organization that you can turn off. UNRWA is a lifeline to hundreds of thousands, to millions of people inside Gaza. You can't replace that with anything else overnight. It's you starve UNRWA and you do starve Gaza in many ways.
And so what is the immediate need right now?
The immediate need in Gaza is for the bombing to stop, for a ceasefire to hold, for the unconditional release of hostages, and for the crossings to open to allow UNRWA and other aid organizations to get aid to the people that need it. We need the crossings to open in a sustained manner. We need to be able to operate in a safe way. The tragic case of the World Central Kitchen workers who were killed last week are yet more aid workers, Palestinian who've been killed since the start of the conflict, almost 200, the vast majority of whom are UNRWA workers, many killed in the line of duty whilst discharging their humanitarian functions.
Sam Rose, thank you very much.